Questions. Oh, my dear friends, have you ever noticed when your phone battery goes down, you panic? But you don't throw the phone away. Questions. You simply put it on charge. In the same way, when our life battery goes down with stress, anxiety, and problems. Questions. We don't have to throw ourselves away. We just need to recharge, but the realization that everything we are facing is temporary. Questions. A pause, smile, look around, and if it's temporary, why make it permanent in our mind? Questions. Everything in life, good or bad, is temporary, my friends. Let's pause for a moment and think deeply about this truth. Questions. Everything in life, whether it brings us joy or is temporary. Nothing stays forever. Not the pain, not the pleasure. Questions. Not the failures, not the successes. This one realization can change how we live, how we deal with stress. Questions, and how we handle every season of life. Let me give you a very simple example. Questions. Do you remember the first time you scraped your knee as a child? That sharp pain, those tears rolling down your cheeks. Questions. And the drama of showing it to your parents as if the world had ended. At that moment it felt so big, so painful. But today, questions. Where is that pain? Where is that scratch? It has long gone. It was temporary. Questions. The same applies to the many pains we go through in life. They may feel huge in the moment, but time heals and they pass away. Questions. Now let's look at the other side. Do you remember your first salary? That feeling of holding your hard-earned money? The joy. Questions. The pride, maybe excitement you have treated family or friends. You felt on top of the world. But did joy last forever? No. It also questions. That doesn't mean it was worthless. It means that joy was a moment, a season. We lived it, we cherished it. Questions. And then life moved on. You see, both pain and pleasure share the same quality. They are temporary. The problem is questions. We humans get too attached. When pain comes, we think it will last forever, and we drown in stress. When pleasure comes, questions. We think it will never go, and we cling desperately, fearing the day it will end. In both cases, questions. We suffer as we forget the universal truth. Nothing is permanent. Let's take an example from nature. Look at the seasons. Questions. Winter comes, and sometimes we complain about how cold it is, how uncomfortable it feels. Questions. But we know in our hearts that winter cannot stay forever. Soon the flowers will bloom and spring will arrive. Similarly, questions. When summer scorches with its heat, we know the rains will come to cool the earth. Every season has its time. Questions. None stays permanently. Our life is exactly like as of happiness. Seasons of sorrow, seasons of success, seasons of failure. Questions. Each has its time and each will pass. Think about exams. For a student, the pressure of exams feel like the end of the world. Questions. Sleepless nights, stress, anxiety. But ask anyone who has grown up and finished their studies, they will tell you. Questions. Those days were just a small part of their life. At that time it looked like a mountain, but now when they look back, questions, it feels like a pebble, because it was temporary. Let's also look at relationships. Many of us go through heartbreak. At that moment, questions, the feel unbearable. We tell ourselves, I can never move on, I can never be happy again. But then time works its magic. Questions. One day if again we smile again, we open our hearts again. That phase of heartbreak too was temporary. Even in our career, questions. We can see this truth. A failure at work may feel like the end of our professional life. We lose a deal. We miss a promotion. Questions. We face rejection. The mind says, this is the end. But is it? No. Slowly, new opportunities come, new doors open. Questions. What seemed like the end was just a bend in the road. That failure was not permanent. It was temporary. Questions. Now here's the beauty of accepting this truth. When we realize everything is temporary, we stop overreacting. Questions. We stop magnifying problems. We stop clinging too tightly to happiness. Instead, we learn to flow with life, calmly and gracefully. Questions. Stress loses its grip on us because we know, this too shall pass. Imagine you are stuck in traffic. You honk, you fume. Questions. You stress, but does the traffic move faster? No. But if you remind yourself, this traffic is temporary. Questions. I will eventually reach my destination. Your mind relaxes. The problem doesn't vanish, but your stress does. Questions. That's the power of remembering impermanence. Friends, everything in this world changes. Look, your old photographs, the hairstyle. Questions. The fashion, the people around you all changed. Nothing remained exactly the same. Time keeps moving, and along with it, questions. Everything in life keeps shifting. That's why holding on to stress is like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips away anyway. Questions. Why exhaust yourself? The wise way is to live fully in every season, knowing it is temporary. When pain comes, questions. Be patient because it won't last forever. When joy comes, be grateful because it also won't last forever. Questions. This attitude gives us balance. We neither sink too low in sorrow, nor fly too high in pride. We remain steady, peaceful, and wise. Questions. So next time you face stress, remember your childhood injuries, your old exam fears, your past heartbreaks. Questions. Remember the times you thought, but this is the end. And then remind yourself none of those stayed. You survive, you healed. Questions. You move on and you will do it again. Because truly, my dear friends, everything in life, good or bad, is temporary. Questions. Problems that past have passed, so will present ones, my dear friends. Questions. Let's be each one of us sitting here has faced moments in life where we thought, but this problem will never end. Questions. I will never get through this. At that time, the stress feels like a mountain sitting on our chest. We lose sleep, we lose appetite. Questions. We lose peace of mind. But if we pause for a moment and look back at our journey, we will realize something powerful. Questions. All those problems we once thought were permanent have already passed. They came, they troubled us, and they went away. Questions. Just like clouds in the sky, they looked heavy and dark, but they eventually moved on. Questions. And the truth is, whatever you are facing right now, however heavy it feels, this too will pass. Think about your school days. Questions. Remember the night before a big exam. The tension, the pressure, the endless revision, and that feeling of, what if I fail? Questions. What I can't do this is that time. The exam felt like the biggest problem in the universe. But where is that exam today? Questions. It has long passed. You may not even remember your score anymore. The problem that once made you cry, made you nervous, questions, made you panic, it is nowhere in your present life. It was temporary. Let's look at another example. Have you ever lost a friendship? Questions. Maybe someone you trusted betrayed you, or a close friend moved away. The pain was so deep, it felt unbearable. Questions. You may have told yourself, but I cannot survive without this person. But what happened? With time you healed. Questions. Maybe you found new friends. Maybe you grew stronger and learned to stand on your own. Questions. The friendship thought you couldn't live without became a memory. That pain passed. The same applies to financial struggles. Questions. Perhaps there was a time when your pockets were empty, when you worried about paying bills, when you were scared about your future. Questions. You thought, but I'm stuck here forever. But with effort, with time, with patience, things changed. Maybe you found a new job. Questions. Maybe you learned new skills. Maybe help came from unexpected places. The situation improved, and you move forward. That difficult financial season passed. You see, problems are like storms. When the storm is raging, the sky looks dark, questions, the winds are violent, and we feel like the destruction will never stop. But do storms stay forever? No, they come, they rage, questions, and they go. After every storm, the sky clears, the sun shines, and the earth recovers. Our life is the same. Questions. No problem has the power to stay permanently. It may shake us for a while, but it cannot hold us forever. Questions. The difficulties is in the middle of the storm. We forget that it will end. Our mind plays tricks on us. It says, questions, this is your destiny. This will never change. And that thought creates stress. Stress is not the problem itself. Questions. Stress is the illusion that the problem is permanent. But once we remember that even our biggest challenges eventually pass, questions, the stress loses its grip. Take health, for example. Maybe you had a high fever once. At that time, lying in bed, every bone aching. Questions. You thought, I will never feel normal again. But after a few days of rest and medicine, you were back on your feet. Questions. The fever felt endless while it lasted, but in reality it was temporary. Even health problems, unless they are truly final, questions, move through their course and leave us stronger. Another beautiful way to understand this is to look at nature. Questions. Have you noticed how a rainbow appears after the rain? The sky was filled with clouds, the earth was soaked. Questions. But once the rain stopped, beauty appeared. Similarly, many of our problems create new beauty in our life once they are over. Questions. Maybe they teach us patience, maybe they introduce us to new people, maybe they strengthen our faith. Questions. Maybe they prepare us for greater challenges ahead. The pain passes, but the growth remains. Think of the heartbreaks, the failures, questions, the rejections of your past. At that time you thought, well, this is the end. But now when you look back, you smile and say, questions, that was a lesson. You even share those stories with others as experiences that made you who you are today. Questions. That shows how temporary problems are. They become memories and stories we laugh about later. So, when you are facing stress today, questions, remind yourself, this is not the first problem you've had. You have faced many and each one has passed. Questions. That is the proof that the current one will also pass. Problems are not permanent residents in your life, they are temporary visitors. Questions. They knock on your door, they disturb you for a while, and then they leave. You don't have to make them feel at home. Questions. The wise way to deal with problems is with patience and faith. Just as we don't panic in winter because we know spring is coming. Questions. We don't need to panic in our problems because we know solutions will appear. Just as the night cannot stop the sunrise. Questions. No problem can stop life from moving forward. My dear friends, problems of the past have already passed. Questions. They did not define your life, they refined your life. Questions. And whatever problem you are facing right now will also follow the same law of impermanence. Don't stress. Questions. Don't think it will last forever. It won't. Life is too dynamic, too moving, too alive for anything to stay the same. Questions. So have patience, have courage, and have faith because just as be, this too shall pass. Questions. Stress is a guest, don't serve it tea, my dear friends. Imagine for a moment that you are sitting at home. Questions. And suddenly someone knocks at your door. You open it and see an unexpected guest. They walk in without even asking, sit on your sofa. Questions. And start making noise. What will you do? Will you rush to the kitchen, mim tea, offer them snacks, and beg them to stay longer? Questions. Or will you politely wait until they'll get up and leave? Stress is exactly like uninvited guest. It comes, knocks, questions, barges into our minds, sits there noisily, and disturbs our peace. The mistake we make is that we serve it tea, we entertain it, questions, feed it, and sometimes even let it stay overnight. Think about it. Stress by itself is powerless. Questions. It cannot stay without our permission. It's like a bird that tries to land on your head. You can't stop it from flying over you. Questions. But you can stop it from building a nest on your head. In the same way, stress will try to enter your life. Questions. But whether you give it space and comfort is your choice. Let's take an everyday example. You send someone a message, questions, and they don't reply. What happens? Stress knocks on your door. Why didn't they reply? Did I say something wrong? Are they angry? Questions. Are they ignoring me? Maybe they don't like me anymore. Is suddenly your imagination starts serving tea to stress. Questions. And the more tea you serve, the longer stress stays. Hours go by, your mood is spoiled, your peace is disturbed. Later, questions. You find out the person's phone battery was dead, or they were simply busy. The problem was never real, the guest of stress was. Questions. Another example, traffic jams. You're stuck in your car, the road is blocked, and you keep looking at the clock. Stress enters. Questions. I will be late, people will think I'm irresponsible, my whole day is ruined. And then you start honking, complaining, questions, maybe even yelling. But let me ask you, does your stress move the traffic? Does your anger push the cars forward? Not all. Questions. The jam will clear when it clears. All stress does is drain your energy while you sit there. You entertained it, and it drained you. Questions. Stress is like a mosquito. The more attention you give it, the more it bites. If you ignore it, if you calmly swat it away, questions, it cannot harm you. Similarly, when stress visits, don't give it energy. Don't keep repeating the negative thoughts. Questions. Don't magnify the problem in your head. Simply acknowledge, here comes stress, my uninvited guest. Let's not serve it tea. Questions. Let's also look at work life. Imagine you have a deadline tomorrow and the project is huge. Stress arrives. Questions. But what if I can't finish? What if my boss gets angry? What if I lose my job? Instead of focusing on the work. Questions. You keep serving tea to stress and hours pass in worry instead of action. What could have been done in 2 hours takes 6. Questions. Because half the time went into entertaining stress. Imagine you had simply ignored the guest, roll up your sleeves, questions, and work calmly. The project would have been done faster and your peace would remain intact. The truth is, questions. Stress never solves problems. It only multiplies them. It adds weight to your shoulders without lifting a single stone from your path. Questions. It's like paying rent to a guest who never plans to stay. Why should we waste our energy like that? In spiritual texts, questions. It is often said that the mind is like a home and we must be careful who we let inside. If stress comes, questions, we don't have to push it violently out, but we can choose not to make it comfortable. How do we do that? By shifting focus. Questions. Instead of replaying the problem, focus on the solution. Instead of thinking about what might go wrong, questions. Think about what you can do right. For example, if you are worried about an exam, instead of serving tea to stress by saying, questions. I will fail, I am not prepared. A focus on studying for the next 30 minutes. Action is the best way to kick stress out of the house. Questions. Stress cannot live where effort is alive. Another beautiful way is gratitude. Stress and gratitude cannot sit in the same room. Questions. If you start counting your blessings, your family, your health, your opportunities, stress quietly gets up and leaves. Questions. It doesn't like to sit with gratitude. So, when stress visits, offer gratitude tea instead. Questions. That's what guest who does your service. My dear friends, life will always send us unexpected guest challenges, problems, worries, questions. Stress will keep knocking, trying to enter, but the decision is ours. Do we serve it tea and let it take over our peace? Questions. Or do we smile, let it sit silently for a while, and then watch it leave? The next time stress enters your mind, remember this line. Questions. Stress a guest, don't serve it tea. Don't give it the power it doesn't have. Sit calmly, breathe, and remind yourself, questions, that this is temporary. The guest will leave soon. And when it does, you will be standing strong, peaceful, and smiling. Questions. Bhagavad Gita. Happiness and distress are like seasons, my dear friends. Have you ever noticed how seasons change? Questions. Summer never stays forever. Winter never stays forever. Monsoon never stays forever. Each season comes with its own flavor. Questions. Its own beauty, its own challenges, and its own lessons. And just as the seasons come and go without asking for our permission. Questions. Happiness and distress in our lives also come and go, whether we like it or not. Lord Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, questions, explained this so beautifully. He said that happiness and distress are like the heat of summer and the cold of winter. Questions. They come and go, and the wise person learns to tolerate them. Now, why did he say this? Questions. Because human beings often make the mistake of thinking that happiness should be permanent and distress should never exist. Questions. We want a summer that never ends if we love mangoes, and we want winter to last forever if we love sweaters and warm blankets. Questions. But nature does not work that way, and neither does life. Think about your own life. Questions. There were times when you laughed so much your stomach hurt, when joy seemed overflowing, when everything felt right. Questions. And then there were times when the tears would not stop, when problems piled up, when pain felt unbearable. Both moments came. Questions. Both. Nothing stayed forever. Let's take an example. Imagine it's the middle of summer. The sun is blazing. Questions. You are sweating and you complain, but when will this heat end? At that moment, winter feels like a dream. But does the sun care about your complaint? No, nature runs on its cycle. In a few months. Questions. Winter will arrive whether you like it or not. Similarly, when we are going through distress, it feels endless. We say, questions. Or when will this end? Why is this happening to me? But just as surely as seasons shift, distress will shift too. Questions. Life's its own rhythm. Now let's look at happiness. Imagine the first monsoon rains after a scorching summer. Children run outside. Questions. People enjoy hot tea and snacks. Farmers smile at their field. Joy is immense. But after some days of heavy rain. Questions. The same people start complaining. Oh, this rain is too much. The clothes won't dry. The roads are flooded. Life is stuck. Questions. The same thing that once gave happiness nay like a burden. Isn't it interesting? Happiness too has its season, it comes. Questions. We enjoy it and then it passes. Think of a child getting their first bicycle. The happiness is so big, they ride it everywhere. Questions. They shine it daily, they show it off to all their friends. But a few years later, the same bicycle lies in the corner, rusty. Questions. Forgotten. The joy of yesterday becomes just a memory today. That's how life is. Every happiness has its season. Questions. And every distress has its season. What happens when we forget this truth? We start resisting life. In happiness, questions. We cling desperately, fearing it will go away. In distress, we fight, we cry, we complain, thinking it will never end. Questions. And both bring us stress. But if we accept life as seasons, we learn to flow. When summer comes, we don't fight the heat. Questions. We adapt, drink more water, wear cotton clothes, use fans. When winter comes, scream at the cold. We adapt, wear sweaters. Questions. Soup, sit near a heater. In the same way, when happiness comes, let us enjoy it with gratitude. And when distress comes, questions, let us tolerate it with patience. Let me share a simple story. A farmer once planted crops, and the monsoon rains came right on time. Questions. He was overjoyed. He said, "This is the happy season of my life." But a month later, the rains became too heavy. Questions. Flood in his fields. Now the same rain brought him distress. Another year, the rain was late, and he worried about drought. But then, questions. A few showers came at the right moment, and again his heart filled with hope. For the farmer, the lesson was clear. Questions. Rain is life, it cannot always be perfect. Sometimes it nourishes, sometimes it troubles, but it never stays the same. Similarly, questions. Think about your school or college results. The day you topped, you were on cloud 9, celebrating with friends and family. Questions. That happiness was season. Later, when you failed or scored lower, it felt like the end of the world. The distress was a season. Questions. Today, both are only memories. Neither defines you permanently. You kept moving forward through many such seasons. Questions. The wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita is not just spiritual, it is deeply practical. It tells us not to get carried away by success. Questions. Nor too broken by failure. Both are temporary, like passing weather. If you are happy today, be grateful but humble. Questions. If you are sad today, be patient and hopeful, because both will change. My dear friends. Questions. The greatest mistake we make is trying to make one season permanent. We want happiness to stay forever, and when it leaves, questions, we feel cheated. But nature shows us every day that permanence is an illusion. The sun rises, and it sets. The moon shines, and it questions. Flowers bloom, and they wither. Nothing stays. But that is not sad, it is beautiful. Questions. Because it means no pain can last forever, and every day carries the possibility of new joy. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, questions, remember Krishna's words. Happiness and distress are like summer and winter. They come, they go. Questions. You cannot control their arrival or departure, but you can control your response. You can complain and suffer. Questions. Or you can adapt and grow. Seasons are not in your hands, but your attitude is. And that, my friends, is where true peace lies. Questions. Shift perspective. Situations don't stress us, our meanings do, my dear friends. Questions. One of the greatest truths of life is that situations by themselves do not have the power to stress us. Questions. What really stresses us is the meaning we attach to those situations. The situation is neutral. It is like a blank canvas. Questions. But our mind paints it with colors, sometimes dark, sometimes bright. And depending on the color we choose, the experience changes. Questions. Let's take an example. Two students get the same result in their exam. They score 70 out of 100. One student looks at it and says, questions, "Oh no, I failed myself. I am not good enough. Everyone will laugh at me." His stress takes over and their confidence drops. Questions. The other student looks at the same 70 marks and says, "But well, last time I got 60, now I improved by 10 marks. I'm on the right track." Questions. Either situation is the same, but the meaning is different. One sees failure, the other sees progress. Who created the stress? Questions. Not the marks, but the meaning. It's like looking at a glass of water. Half filled, one person says, "Oh no, half is empty." Questions. And the person says, "But thank God, half is still full." The water didn't change, but the meaning did. And with the meaning, questions. The feelings traffic again. One person stuck in traffic is banging the steering wheel, honking, cursing everyone. Questions. Blood pressure rising. Another person stuck in the same traffic thinks, but well, I can't change this. Let me listen to some music or call my mother while waiting. If the cars are the same, the jam is the same. Questions. But the meaning attached is different. For it's torture, for the other it's an opportunity. So often in life, questions. Stress is simply our interpretation, not the reality. Let's say your boss calls you to the office and says, but we need to talk. Questions. Immediately your mind jumps, oh no, I am in trouble. Maybe you will lose my job. Maybe he is angry. Questions. You start sweating before the conversation even begins. But when you go in, your boss says, but congratulations. Questions. I want to give you a bigger responsibility. If the stress you felt wasn't created by your boss. Questions. It was created by the meaning your mind attached. Our mind has a strange habit of imagining the worst. Questions. It's a nude situation and paints it black. That is why so many people live more in imagined problems than in real ones. Questions. Stress is often the story we tell ourselves, not the reality we live in. Now let's turn this around. Imagine you lose a job. Questions. On the surface, it looks like a negative event. Most people attach the meaning. But my life is ruined. I will never recover. Questions. This is a disaster. And then stress crushes them. But some people attach a different meaning. Post questions. Or maybe this is life way of pushing me into something better. Maybe this is an opportunity to grow, to start my own business. Questions. Or to find a career I love. And many times, those people look back years later and say, questions. The losing the job was the best thing that ever happened to me. If the event didn't change, it was the meaning that changed the story. Questions. Think about heartbreak. A relationship ends. For some the meaning becomes, but I am not lovable. I will always be alone. Questions. That meaning breeds endless stress. But for others, the meaning is that this relationship was meant to teach me something. Questions. It prepared me for the right person who will come at the right time. Same with events. Two meanings. Two completely different lives. Post questions. Even in daily annoyances, the same principle applies. Suppose you spill tea on your clothes. You can attach the meaning. Questions. But I am so clumsy, my whole day is ruined. Here you can laugh and say, oh well, at least now I have a good excuse to wear that new shirt. Questions. If the tea stain did decide your mood, you did, by the meaning you chose. The truth is we cannot always control situations. Questions. But we can always control the meaning. And by controlling the meaning, we control the stress. Life is like a mirror. Question. Smile at it, it smiles back. If you frown at it, it frowns back. The reflection is determined by you. Now, questions. How do we practice this in real life? The first step is awareness. Whenever you feel stressed, pause and ask yourself questions. The what meaning am I attaching to this? Is just that question opens a door. Then ask questions. Or is there another meaning I can attach? Most of the time, yes. Questions. You can always shift from but this is the end to this is a challenge I can grow through. From why me to a try me. Questions. From a this is a punishment to a this is a lesson. Think of athletes. When they lose a match, questions. The meaning they attach is not by am useless. They say, but this loss shows me where I need to improve. Questions. And that meaning pushes them to practice harder, to rise stronger, to come back and win. If they had chosen the wrong meaning, questions. Stress would have crushed them and the world would never know their greatness. My dear friends, situations don't have voices. Ask questions. They don't whisper, I am bad or I am good. They are silent. The voice you hear is your mind assigning meaning. Questions. And if you can learn to guide that voice to give empowering meanings instead of negative ones. Stress will lose its power over you. Questions. So next time life's something at you, pause. Don't rush to serve stress a seat in your mind. Ask yourself, post questions. Then what else could this mean? Maybe this rejection means redirection. Maybe this delay means protection. Questions. Maybe this struggle means preparation. You hold the paintbrush, you decide the colors, and once you change the meanings, questions, you change the story. And once you change the story, you change your life. Questions. Nature life teaches impermanence, day/night. Seasons change, my dear friends. Questions. One of the greatest teachers of life is not found in classrooms, not found in books. Questions. Not even in big speeches, it is found right outside our window. Nature is constantly whispering us about the truth of life. Questions. And the truth is simple, nothing is permanent. Day changes to night, night changes to day. Seasons keep turning, spring, summer. Questions. Monsoon, autumn, winter. Rivers flow, flowers bloom, leaves fall. Nothing stays the same, yet everything keeps moving. Questions. Nature is the biggest reminder that change is the only constant, and impermanence is the rule of life. Think about the sunrise. Questions. Every morning rises without fail. The darkness of the night slowly fades, and the first rays of light fill the sky with hope. Questions. But does the sun stay there forever? No, by evening it sets, and darkness returns. Imagine if you are standing at sunset and crying. Questions. Oh no, the sun is gone. I will never see light again. That would sound foolish, right? Because deep inside, questions, you know that tomorrow morning the sun will rise again. The cycle is unbreakable. Similarly, in life, when darkness comes, questions, when problems surround us, we cry as the sun of our happiness has gone forever. Questions. But life is the same as nature, it is only a matter of time before the sun rises again. Now let's look at seasons. Questions. Summer comes with heat. The earth feels dry. People complain about the scorching sun. But then monsoon arrives. Questions. The same earth that was thirsty now dances with joy as raindrops fall. Rivers swell, crops grow, and the air becomes cool. Questions. Then comes winter with its chill, when everyone is wrapped in blankets, sipping hot tea. Each season has its time. Questions. If summer tried to hold on, winter wouldn't come. If monsoon refused to leave, autumn wouldn't appear. Questions. Change is built in the design of nature, and our life is exactly the same. Joy comes, joy goes. Pain goes. Questions. Nothing can stay because change is the law. Let's take another example. A tree in spring is full of flowers. It looks beautiful, questions, full of life. But after some weeks, the flowers dry and fall. If you only saw the tree in that moment, you might think, questions, oh no, this tree is finished. It has lost its beauty. But wait a little longer, and new flowers bloom again. Questions. The tree has its seasons. Our lives are like that tree. Sometimes are blooming with happiness, and sometimes our flowers fall. Questions. But just because the flowers have fallen does not mean the tree is dead. It is only a season. Think about rivers. The Ganga. Questions. The Yamuna, the Amazon heavy river flows continuously. The same water never stays in one place. New water keeps coming. Questions. Old water flows away. If a river tried to hold onto its water, it would become stagnant, dirty, lifeless. Questions. Its beauty lies in movement. Life is the same. We must let things flow. Success, failure, joy, sorrow, people, experiences. Questions. If we try to hold on tightly, we become stagnant, filled with stress. But if we learn to flow, life becomes refreshing, alive. Questions. Even the moon teaches us this lesson. Some nights is full, shining brightly in the sky. Questions. Some nights is just a thin crescent. Sometimes it even disappears completely. But do we panic when we don't see it? No. Questions. We know it will return its time, in its cycle. In the same way, sometimes our life feels full, glowing with joy. Other times, questions. It feels empty, dark, lonely. But just as surely as the moon returns, our joy will return. Life moves in cycles. Nothing is forever. Questions. Neither fullness nor emptiness. Take the example of autumn leaves. When leaves fall from trees, it may look like the tree is dying. Questions. But actually, it is preparing for renewal. The fallen leaves make way for new growth. Similarly, questions. When something falls away from our life, a relationship, a job, a phase, it may look like an ending. But in truth, questions. It is preparation for something new. The leaf falls, but the tree remains. Our challenges come, but we remain. Questions. Even storms are temporary. The strongest cyclone, the fiercest thunderstorm, cannot last forever. It passes. The sky clears. Questions. The sun shines again. When problems come into our lives, we feel as if they are permanent storms. But nature says, but don't worry. Questions. No storm stays forever. If we can just wait with patience, the storm will pass and peace will return. Questions. Children understand this naturally. Watch out cry in moment because their toy broke. In the minutes they are laughing again, run around happily. They don't hold on to sorrow. They let it pass just as nature intended. Adults forget this wisdom. Questions. We hold on to pain, we replay it, we keep it alive long after it should have passed. That is why stress eats soup. Questions. If only we learned from children and from nature that every feeling, every event, every season moves on. Questions. We will live much more peacefully. My dear friends, nature is not separate from us, we are part of it. Just as day follows night without fail, hope follows despair without fail. Just as winter gives way to spring. Questions. Your hard times will give way to good times. If you trust nature, you must also trust life. If you believe the sun will rise tomorrow, questions, then believe your happiness will also rise tomorrow. The key is patience. Farmers never cry when seeds are under the soil. Questions. They know that in time they will grow. They wait through seasons, trusting the process. We too must learn to wait with faith. Questions. Knowing that our seasons of life will turn. Nothing is permanent, neither our pain nor our pleasure. Everything is temporary. Questions. Everything is flowing, everything is moving. So the next time stress tries to convince you that your pain is permanent, step outside. Questions. Look the sky, the sun, the moon, the trees, the river. Let nature remind you. Everything changes. Nothing stays. Questions. And if nature itself does not hold on, why should we? Questions. Let go. Holding on to stress burns us, my dear friends. Imagine this. You pip a burning coal in your hand. It's hot, it's painful. Questions. But you clench your fist tighter and tighter, refusing to drop us. Does the coal suffer? The coal simply burns. Questions. You are the one who feels the pain. Stress is like that burning coal. Problems may come, challenges may appear. Questions. But the suffering multiplies only when we refuse to let go. Holding on to stress does not solve anything. It only burns us from within. Questions. How many of us have replayed a single event in our head again and again until it exhausted us completely? A harsh word someone said. Questions. A mistake we made. A disappointment we faced. We think about in the morning, in the evening, before sleeping, while eating. Questions. The event lasted maybe a few minutes, but in our minds, it lives for days, weeks, sometimes even years. Questions. That is holding on to stress. The coal is already hot, but we keep gripping it, expecting somehow it will cool down. Questions. Let's take a small example. Imagine you are driving and someone cuts you off rudely. For a moment you feel angry is natural. Questions. But then you keep thinking about it for hours. But how dare they? People have no manners. Questions. The world is so unfair. You narrate the story to 10 different people, and each time the anger rises again. Questions. The incident was only 10 seconds long, but you have stretched the stress into 10 hours. That's the effect of holding on. Questions. Now compare this with a child. A child gets upset when someone takes away their toy. They cry, maybe even scream. Questions. But minutes later, they are laughing again, playing with something else. They don't hold on. They let go quickly. Questions. That's why children are naturally happier than adults. We think maturity means holding on to pain longer. Questions. But true wisdom is the ability to release pain sooner. Think about relationships. Someone hurts you with their words. It stings. Questions. Of course, but instead of letting go, we sometimes hold on for years, replay their words in our mind, and each time post questions. Meanwhile, that person may have forgotten about it completely, move on with their life. Who continues to suffer? Questions. Because we didn't drop the core. Even in professional life, this happens. Maybe you made a mistake at work. Questions. And your boss scolded you. The mistake is corrected. The work moves on, but inside you carry the stress of that moment for weeks. Questions. You lose confidence. You fear trying again. You keep replaying the scolding. The mistake was temporary. Questions. But the stress becomes permanent because we chose not to let go. Now let's look at forgiveness. Questions. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was right. Forgiveness is simply dropping the coal so it doesn't burn you anymore. Questions. It is choosing peace over pain. When forgive. Questions. We are not doing a favor to others. We are freeing ourselves from the weight of stress. The past cannot be changed. Questions. But the hold on the past can be released. Let me share a small story. Questions. 2 monks were traveling and came across a woman who needed to cross a muddy stream. Questions. One monk carried her across and put her down safely. They continued walking. Hours later, the second monk said, Questions. But why did you carry that woman? We monks are not supposed to touch women. The first monk smiled and said, Brother. Questions. I left her at the river hours ago, but you are still carrying her in your mind. Is this exactly what happens with stress? Questions. The event is over, but we continue carrying it inside. Think about how many poor women we are carrying in our minds. Old hurts. Questions. Old failures, old disappointments. They weigh us down, not because they are heavy, but because we refuse to let go. Questions, and in hold on them we burn ourselves daily. Now, how do we actually let go? First, we accept that stress doesn't help. Questions. It doesn't solve, it only burns. Second, we shift our focus to the present moment. Stress lives in the past or in the future. Questions. It feeds on what happened or what might happen. In the present, there is only action, only choice, only peace. Third, questions. We press gratitude. When we count our blessings, the grip of stress naturally loosens. Questions. Gratitude is like water, it cools the burning coal and makes it easier to drop. Nature again shows us how to let go. Questions. Trees let go of their leaves in autumn, making space for new ones. Rivers let go of their water continuously, staying fresh and alive. Questions. Even the sky lets go of clouds after rain, shining clear again. If nature knows the art of release, why should we humans? Questions. Who are a part of nature carry the unnecessary weight of yesterday's stress. My dear friends, stress is inevitable. Questions. But suffering is optional. We cannot stop the coal from being hot, but we can stop gripping it. Questions. We cannot prevent people from being rude, life from being unfair, or challenges from coming. Questions. but we can prevent ourselves from being burnt by holding on to them. Letting go does not mean weakness. Letting go means wisdom. Questions. It means choosing to value your peace more than your pain. So next time stress comes, ask yourself, am I holding a burning coal? Questions. Am I hurting myself by refusing to release this? And then, with courage, simply open your fist and let it fall. Questions. You will feel lighter, freer, and more peaceful. Because the truth is simple, holding onto stress burns us, but letting go heals us.